Terrifier. Long before the blood-soaked feature films built a cult following, the nightmare clown at the center of it all started inside a small short film experiment by special effects artist Damien Leone. In 2008, Leone premiered an 11-minute short called The Ninth Circle, though it had actually been filmed 2 years earlier on 35mm film. The project marked Leone's first time directing, and it quietly introduced the world to Art the Clown, played then by Mike Gianelli. The story follows a woman named Casey walking through a subway station on Halloween night when the silent clown begins stalking her through the tunnels before abducting her and delivering her to a satanic cult preparing a ritual sacrifice. Leone originally treated art as just one strange ingredient among several horror ideas involving demons, witches, and occult imagery. Viewers reacted strongly to the clown. That response pushed Leone to build another short in 2011 titled Terrifier, where art finally became the focus. In that story, a woman witnesses one of his murders at a gas station and suddenly becomes his next target. The shorts eventually led to the anthology film All Hallows Eve and later the independent feature Terrifier in 2016, turning a small experiment into a brutal slasher franchise. Smile. The 2022 horror hit actually grew out of a tightly focused short film titled Laura Hasn't Slept, which was created in 2020 by filmmaker Parker Finn. The short runs about 11 minutes and centers on a woman named Laura Weaver who desperately seeks help from her therapist after experiencing a recurring nightmare that refuses to leave her alone. During the session, she explains how the dream always begins in ordinary places before something disturbing appears. A man standing nearby with an unnaturally wide smile. The figure silently watches her before the nightmare spirals into chaos.
Are you certain you're not dreaming right now?
As Laura recounts the experience, her exhaustion and fear become obvious because she's too terrified to fall asleep again. The short builds nearly all of its tension inside the therapy office, while Laura slowly realizes the nightmare may be leaking into the real world. The session eventually twists into a surreal breakdown where the smiling presence seems to take control of the moment itself. The film premiered at South by Southwest in 2020, where it caught strong attention from audiences and industry figures. Paramount quickly saw potential in the concept and hired Finn to expand the idea into a full movie. The feature Smile continues the story, beginning with Laura's horrifying fate and the curse spreading. By the way, if you guys like movie content like this, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Saw. Before the Twisted Traps and Massive franchise existed, the idea started as a 9-minute proof-of-concept short film created in 2003 by director James Wan and writer Lee Wannell. The two filmmakers were struggling to convince producers to fund their screenplay, so they decided to film one key scene themselves to prove the concept could work on screen. Wannell even starred in the short as a hospital orderly named David, who describes a horrifying situation to a police officer after surviving a deadly trap. The centerpiece of the short is the device that later became one of the most recognizable elements of the franchise, the reverse bear trap. The brutal mechanism is locked onto a victim's head and will tear their jaw apart unless they complete a gruesome task before the timer runs out. Wan and Wannell shot the short, quickly using a small crew and a budget of around $5,000, filming over about 2 days on 16mm film. Once finished, they sent copies of the short along with their screenplay to producers in Los Angeles. The strategy worked. Producers saw the potential and agreed to finance the feature film Saw, released in 2004, which expanded the concept into the beginning of a billion-dollar horror franchise, Backrooms. The feature film coming later this year traces its origin to a 9-minute YouTube short called The Backrooms Found Footage, created by teenage filmmaker Kane Parsons, known online as Kane Pixels. He started building the project in late 2021 after rediscovering the eerie Backrooms image that had floated around internet creepypasta circles for many years. Parsons was only 16, yet he rebuilt those endless yellow office halls using Blender for modeling and animation, then layered the footage in Adobe After Effects to mimic damaged 1990s videotape. The short presents a cameraman shooting an indie project in 1996 who suddenly slips out of reality and drops into a maze of buzzing lights and stained carpet while something unknown stalks the halls. Parsons originally tested the idea with a tiny animation of a chair flying across the room, then expanded it into the finished video over about a month. After the upload in January 2022, attention snowballed fast. Views jumped from thousands in the first week to tens of millions soon after. The viral response pushed Parsons to continue the story through a growing series that introduced the mysterious research group Async and a deeper mythology surrounding the impossible space today. The Babadook. Before the unsettling 2014 psychological horror film ever existed, its roots lived inside a 10-minute Australian short called Monster, created in 2005 by filmmaker Jennifer Kent. At the time, Kent had recently shifted away from acting and wanted to explore directing, so the short became an early test of the ideas that would later define the feature film. The story centers on a mother trying to calm her frightened young son who insists a monster is hiding somewhere inside their home. As the night moves forward, the tension builds and the possibility of something real lurking in the shadows begins creeping closer. The film starred Susan Pryor as the mother and Luke Ikema as Healy as the child. And it relied on atmosphere rather than flashy effects. Dim lighting, tight domestic spaces, and the uneasy bond between parent and child created the dread. The idea reportedly came from a story Kent heard about a child claiming to see a monster man in the house, which sparked her interest in how fear lives inside families. Years later, Kent expanded those themes through development programs and script revisions, transforming the idea into the feature film The Babadook, where grief and repression shape the terrifying figure from the strange children's book Mr. Babadook, Skinamarink. The unsettling experimental horror film released in 2022 grew directly from a short project titled Heck, created in 2020 by Canadian filmmaker Kyle Edward Ball. The short runs about 28 minutes and already contains the strange dreamlike style that later defined the feature. Ball had been running a YouTube channel called Bite-Sized Nightmares, where viewers described their nightmares in the comments and he recreated them in short videos. One theme kept appearing again and again: the childhood fear of waking up in the middle of the night and realizing the parents are gone while something unknown lurks inside the house. Heck explores that exact idea through a minimal story about a young child wandering through a dark home as strange sounds echo through the rooms. And a mysterious presence seems to move in the shadows. The film avoids traditional storytelling almost entirely. Instead, it focuses on grainy images of hallways, ceilings, toys, and empty doorways, while eerie audio and distant voices create tension. Ball made the short as a test to see if the concept could support something longer. After seeing the reaction, he expanded the idea into the feature Skinamarink, turning the nightmare into a full film. When a Stranger Calls. The chilling opening that made the 1979 horror film unforgettable actually began as a small independent short film titled The Sitter, released in 1977. Director Fred Walton created the 22-minute short with the writer Steve Feek. After the two discussed a creepy urban legend known as the babysitter and the man upstairs. They realized the concept had serious suspense potential and decided to film it themselves on a tiny budget of about $12,000. Production moved quickly. The entire project was shot on 35mm film in just 3 days during May 1977. The story follows a teenage babysitter named Jill Johnson spending the night in a quiet house while the children sleep upstairs. Strange phone calls begin interrupting the evening. A voice repeatedly asks if she has checked on the children.
Hello.
Have you checked the children?
Billy, I don't think this is very funny.
The tension builds until police trace the call and deliver a terrifying warning. The caller is inside the house. That short film created such intense suspense that producers who attended a screening saw its potential for a full-length movie. Walton expanded the concept into the 1979 feature When a Stranger Calls, where the first 20 minutes closely mirror the short, turning that simple premise into one of horror cinema's most famous openings, Mama. The supernatural horror film released in 2013 actually began as an incredibly brief 3-minute short film with the same name created in 2008 by Andy Muschietti, alongside his sister and producing partner Barbara Muschietti. The short wastes no time establishing its unsettling idea. Two young sisters are getting ready for bed when a strange maternal presence suddenly appears inside the house.
Victoria, no mires, vamos. Victoria!
The ghostly figure crawls through the hallway with unnatural movement while the girls call out to it, blending the comfort of motherhood with something deeply disturbing. Muschietti designed the short as a visual proof of concept using minimal dialogue, a single location, and carefully controlled lighting to focus attention on atmosphere and the eerie motion of the creature. Despite its tiny runtime, the short circulated online and caught serious attention for how effectively it delivered fear in just a few minutes. One viewer who took notice was filmmaker Guillermo del Toro, who reportedly found the imagery incredibly frightening. He supported expanding the idea into a full-length film and joined as executive producer. The concept grew into the 2013 feature, Mama, starring Jessica Chastain, where the mysterious entity becomes a tragic maternal spirit tied to two abandoned sisters, the Evil Dead. Before the chainsaws, possessed forests, and gallons of fake blood defined the franchise, the concept existed as a rough 32-minute short film called Within the Woods, created by Sam Raimi in the late 1970s. Raimi was only about 19 at the time, and teamed up with longtime friends Bruce Campbell and Rob Tappert, the same collaborators who later helped launch the Evil Dead series through their company Renaissance Pictures. The short was never meant for wide release. Its entire purpose was to convince potential investors that the group could actually pull off a full horror movie. Production was extremely scrappy. They filmed the project during a single 3-day weekend in a remote cabin and worked with a budget around $1,600. The story already contained the key idea that later defined the feature film. A group of young friends travels to a secluded cabin where a buried evil force awakens and begins possessing them one by one.
And I woke up, and then I started running.
See if you can make any sense out of it, right?
Raimi packed the short with fast camera movements, homemade practical effects, and intense horror moments to show what they were capable of creating with limited resources, which eventually led to the 1981 feature film, The Evil Dead 9. The animated science fiction film released in 2009 actually began as a student short film created by Shane Acker. The project debuted in 2005 and ran for about 11 minutes, yet it introduced the eerie world that later became the full feature. The short takes place in a ruined future where humanity has vanished and small ragdoll-like beings wander through the remains of civilization. The central character is a stitched creature marked with the number 9 who explores the environment while being hunted by a terrifying mechanical predator known as the Cat Beast. The creature captures other ragdolls and consumes their souls, giving the short an unsettling tone despite its quiet storytelling. Acker created the film largely on his own as part of his graduate studies. The film contains no dialogue at all and instead relies on visuals and sound to communicate the story. Its creativity caught major attention across animation festivals and even earned an Academy Award nomination. Filmmaker Tim Burton later helped expand the concept into the 2009 feature film 9, where the mysterious ragdolls become fragments of human souls. Oculus. The supernatural horror film released in 2013 actually traces back to a low-budget short titled Oculus Chapter 3, The Man with the Plan. Created by filmmaker Mike Flanagan around 2005 and 2006, the short runs about 32 minutes and was designed as a simple proof of concept built around one actor, one room, and one terrifying object, an antique mirror known as the Lasser glass.
People have to know. I've won.
The story follows a man named Tim Russell who locks himself inside a room to run a controlled experiment on the mirror, convinced it carries a long history of madness and death among previous owners.